The crisis enveloping the Dallas Cowboys defense this season is not merely a story of underperformance. It is a case study in systemic breakdown, a portrait of a once feared unit that has disintegrated into one of the league's most porous and predictable groups, and a cautionary tale for any franchise that dares to believe that reputation and talent alone can carry a team through the relentless scrutiny and tactical sophistication of modern NFL offenses. On paper, there is a silver lining. The Cowboys' run defense has been surprisingly stout, boasting an EPA per rush allowed comparable to that of the Kansas City Chiefs, a unit widely regarded as one of the most balanced and disciplined defenses in football. But that singular strength is swallowed whole by a catastrophic pass defense that has been so consistently and catastrophically exposed that any statistical achievement on the ground is rendered meaningless. Entering the season, the consensus among analysts and fans alike was that if Dallas could at least hold the line against the run, the rest would fall into place. Perhaps not a top 5 unit, but respectable, competitive, middle of the pack. Instead, what has unfolded is a collapse so profound that it has reshaped the identity of this team and cast a long dark shadow over its postseason aspirations. By almost every meaningful metric, the Cowboys have been a defensive disaster, dead last in yards per pass allowed, dead last in third down conversions surrendered, dead last in passing yards per game, and sitting among the league's worst in sack percentage. It's not simply bad, it's historically bad. And that demands an explanation. The first and most glaring culprit is schematic stubbornness, a coaching philosophy so rigid and predictable that opposing offenses practically salivate when they see the Cowboys on the schedule. Matt Eberflus's heavy reliance on zone coverage has become a liability. Zone itself isn't inherently flawed. When executed correctly, it minimizes yards after the catch, forces quarterbacks to dink and dunk their way downfield, and reduces the likelihood of explosive plays. In fact, Dallas has been excellent in one area. They've allowed just 6 yards after the catch over expected, among the best marks in the league. The problem is that when you deploy zone coverage on roughly 90% of defensive snaps, you stop disguising your intentions. Offenses don't have to guess. They know exactly what's coming. Quarterbacks are finding easy completions into the soft underbelly of the defense, chewing up yards with methodical precision before lulling defenders into complacency and striking deep. This predictability is a gift to opposing play callers, who, after a week of film study, can identify and exploit the same vulnerabilities over and over. That's precisely what the Chicago Bears did, referencing tape from Dallas's Week 2 debacle against the Giants to construct a blueprint that carved up the secondary. The refusal to deviate from this zone-heavy approach, even as results worsen, suggests either a deep mistrust of the personnel or a coaching staff out of answers. Compounding the schematic issues is the Cowboys' feeble pass rush. In a league where collapsing the pocket is essential to any defense's success, Dallas is failing at a fundamental level. They rank just 20th in total pressures and 7th worst in time to pressure, meaning quarterbacks are simply not being hurried. The consequences of this are twofold. Receivers and tight ends have more time to find and settle into the open spaces in Dallas's predictable zone, and quarterbacks have the luxury of scanning the field and working through their progressions without duress. This has turned many of Dallas's defensive snaps into glorified 7-on-7 drills, a nightmare scenario for any coordinator. The reluctance to blitz only exacerbates the issue. Rarely does Dallas deploy a nickel blitz or dial up creative pressure looks. When they do blitz, it's often unimaginative, a linebacker barreling straight into a blocker without affecting the play. Yet when they have taken risks, such as sending cornerback pressure against the Eagles or Caleb Williams, the results were promising. Still, such moments are too infrequent to alter the broader trend. The paradox here is maddening. A defense that struggles to generate pressure with 4 rushers but refuses to blitz aggressively is essentially conceding control of the line of scrimmage before the ball is even snapped. Then there's the matter of communication, or rather the lack thereof, in the secondary. Blown coverages have become a weekly ritual, with defenders drifting out of position, misreading route combinations, and leaving vast swaths of the field unguarded. These aren't subtle mistakes. They're breakdowns so egregious that receivers are often running free by 10 yards or more. Against Chicago, a tight end slipped unnoticed into the back of the end zone because Donovan Wilson bit on an underneath route. On another play, safety Malik Hooker was forced to choose between two uncovered vertical routes, a choice he shouldn't have to make in any competent defensive scheme. These communication failures have contributed to Dallas allowing more separation than any other team in the league, a humiliating distinction that reflects both mental lapses and a fundamental lack of cohesion. Coaches and front office figures, from coordinator Brian Schottenheimer to owner Jerry Jones, have publicly acknowledged the problem. But acknowledgement without adjustment is meaningless. If the current system is too complex for players to execute without frequent breakdowns, the system must change. And yet here we are, watching the same errors repeat week after week. Personnel issues further deepen the crisis. Injuries and underperformance have eroded the talent base of this defense to the point where even a perfect scheme might not save it. Cornerback Trevin Diggs, once a game-changing ball hawk, looks like a shadow of his former self after 2 knee injuries. Slower, less reactive, unable to match receivers stride for stride. Rookie Elam, who impressed in training camp, has been overmatched in live action. Donovan Wilson, miscast as a deep safety, continues to struggle in coverage responsibilities that don't suit his skill set. Linebackers Jack Sanborn and Kenneth Murray have been consistently fooled by play action, vacating their zones and opening up throwing lanes. These personnel deficiencies underscore a harsh truth. In the NFL, talent matters more than scheme. Even the most brilliantly designed defense will fail if the players executing it can't meet the demands of their assignments. Dallas simply doesn't have enough high-level performers on this side of the ball to execute Eberflus's vision. And that's a roster-building failure as much as a coaching one. Finally, the cumulative effect of all these problems, schematic rigidity, weak pass rush, blown assignments, and inadequate personnel, has created a culture of fear and conservatism within the coaching staff. Eberflus, terrified of surrendering big plays, has retreated deeper into a bend but don't break philosophy. The result is a defense that bends and then breaks anyway. The distrust in the secondary is so profound that the staff refuses to call man coverage with any regularity, convinced that their defensive backs will be torched in one-on-one matchups. When Dallas did attempt man coverage against the Bears, Caleb Williams completed every pass. This fear of failure feeds into itself. The less the coaches trust their players, the more conservative they become, and the more predictable the defense grows, perpetuating the very problems they are trying to solve. There's faint hope on the horizon, with potential reinforcements like